David awoke with a start, his head pounding and his heart racing. The oppressive silence of the room seemed to amplify the void in his memory as the world around him unfolded without any sense of familiarity. Welcome to this story. If you don't want to miss our other publications, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. But now, enjoy. David, a 32-year-old man, was known for his success in business and his determination to keep his family's legacy alive. A brilliant entrepreneur, he had always shown a natural predisposition for work, and thanks to his dedication, he had managed to bring the family business to very high levels. However, his success was not the only thing that defined him. Deep down, there was a side to David that few knew. Despite his apparent security, he hid a deep loneliness. He had grown up surrounded by luxury, but something essential was missing: love. The old friends had drifted apart, and the evenings spent toasting and partying had given way to sleepless nights, filled with reflections and incomplete thoughts. His life changed radically that fateful day during a trip to the family summer house, a place that held memories of his childhood and youth. In that residence, they had gathered to celebrate his birthday, but no one would have ever imagined that fate would play such a cruel card. The barn of the property, now disused and in precarious conditions, had become the scene of an accident that would mark David's life forever. Determined to recover some old fishing rods for a trip with his friends, David ignored the advice of his mother, who had warned him of the dangers of the place. But his stubbornness prevailed, and as he was moving an old tool, the roof of the barn suddenly collapsed, hitting him violently on the head and leaving him unconscious under the rubble. His terrified friends pulled him out, but once he got to the hospital, the situation turned out to be more complicated than anyone could have imagined. When he awoke, David no longer recognized his life. The memories of the last 5 years had disappeared like fog dissolved by the sun. Confusion enveloped him, and he couldn't understand why he didn't even recognize the people who were next to him. His mother, Anna, and his father, Leonardo, tried to reassure him, but he felt lost in a world that no longer belonged to him. After weeks of rehabilitation, doctors recommended a quiet environment for recovery. So, David decided to return to the summer house, hoping that this place of memories could somehow help him regain his memory. This is where Eleanor came into the picture, a young woman hired to help with the housework. David's mother had thought that a discreet presence could be useful in that delicate period, but he did not welcome her. For David, Eleanor was just a figure who had no meaning, a maid like so many others. Their first meeting was cold and distant. Elena was nervous, but tried to hide her anxiety as she went about her duties. Yet, a small domestic incident changed everything. One day, while David was checking some documents, he heard a noise coming from the kitchen. What could have happened? He went to look and found Eleanor kneeling on the floor, busy picking up the glass fragments of a broken plate. She had cut her hand, and the blood was slowly dripping onto the broken ceramic. "Let me see," David said, reaching out and gently taking her hand to wrap it. It was then that something changed. The contact with that simple and vulnerable girl awakened an unexpected feeling in him. Their eyes met, and for a moment, David had the strange sensation of knowing her, but he could not understand from where. "You were in the hospital, right?" he asked, Trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, Elena nodded silently, avoiding his gaze. David's heart began to beat faster, confused by the connection he couldn't explain. There was something more to the woman, but he couldn't remember what. Was it possible that Eleanor wasn't just a maid? At this point, if you are enjoying the story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for the support. One day, while walking slowly through the garden of the villa, David felt a shiver run down his spine. Each step seemed heavier, as if the ground itself was holding him, almost aware of what was about to happen. Suddenly, without warning, a barrage of images hit him with the force of a sudden wave. Confused memories, quick flashes of faces, emotions, lost sensations. He saw himself there, in that garden, surrounded by flowers and lights, with his heart filled with a joy he couldn't explain, in front of a wonderful woman. And then, the most devastating blow of all. That moment was not a dream, it was real. That wedding, it was his wedding. The images became clearer, his heart hammered in his chest as his breathing became shallow, in disbelief in the face of that revelation that set his soul ablaze. Turning slowly to Eleanor, who was in the garden at that moment, time seemed to stop. His eyes searched for her desperately, and when he finally saw her, everything became clear in a shocking instant, as if a veil had been torn from his mind. David's heart skipped a beat, his breath caught in his throat. Elena was not just a servant. No, it was so much more. It was her. It was his wife, the woman he had shared everything with, the woman he had sworn to love forever. How could he have forgotten? Emotions swept over him like a storm. Love, regret, a suffocating sense of guilt. He ran to her without hesitation. "Elena, I remember everything now," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "You are my wife. How could I forget? I'm sorry I didn't recognize you, but I never stopped loving you." His words came out with deep sincerity as he held her in his arms. Elena looked at him with a bright smile. "You never really forgot me, David. I was always here, even when you couldn't remember." Their embrace was a reconciliation, a promise that, despite everything, their love had survived.